Hey, here we are. Holy shit.
Hey.
Turns out we're still alive.
We're alive? Oh my god.
Welcome, everybody.
What's the date? I don't even know the date.
It is the 14th of September, 2024. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Push to Talk. We have a bit of a guest here with us. I don't know if you saw it in the ping, or maybe in the title of the show. But Overload is here. He is bottom left-hand side, so somewhere down there. Relative to me, anyway.
Relative.
Hello. I assume that was the intro. Hello. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Thank you for having me on.
Hey, no worries. You're always welcome to be on. Whenever you want. This show is pretty casual in terms of like if you want to be on or not. Like, the nice thing about how we have it set up is, if you need to go or if you're not here and you want to be on camera and you think like, oh, I can't go on because if I go on camera, it'll mess all the kind of things up. That's not how that happens. It will just, it'll adjust itself, which is quite nice.
That's the amazingness of the McLeod.
Well, it's also the amazingness of Sothrasil finding, a lovely little service called Video Ninja.
It might actually be the only thing I stole from the AT instead of the other way around.
Yeah, it's super good. We use it for the AT a bunch, at least for the feeders, because we can run it all online. It's super easy. Although we use vMix as well for some of it, but like that's an expensive paid program.
Yeah, vMix is like you're definitely entering the pro level in terms of like control and all that kind of stuff, and ingest. And all that kind of stuff, which is really, really nice. It's just, as you say, quite expensive. But yes, we are here, and I think the last time that when we said that, like, we were having a break for a few weeks, and 2 of those weeks were down to the fact that the feeders for the I think you refer to it as the feeders, Soth. Am I right there? Like,
yes,
the feeders for the Alliance tournament were going on, so we didn't want to encroach on that, and we didn't want to, we also wanted you guys to watch Goonswarm and stuff like that playing as well as in it lose, but the only other one was we were in Prague for a little while, so a bunch of us were in Prague anyway for a while. And we said that we were going to come back with an interesting and something cool, something special. But we weren't expecting this because we saw that there was we were directed to a web page that had a timer ticking down, which revealed itself to be like a not reimagining, but just like a renaming of Project Awakening into Eve Frontiers.
Yeah, that's correct. So Project Awakening was the internal code name for what is now known as Eve Frontier. On Thursday was when we announced Eve Frontier more widely to the public. Obviously, we at CCP have spoke about Project Awakening. There's been playtests. We spoke about it at FanFest before, but this is now the sort of official. Here's the name. Here's the white paper. Here's an announcement of Eve Frontier. So yeah, that was on Thursday.
Nice. And I've been poring over the white paper. It's annoyingly Overload. It's large. It's larger and longer than it appears because it has a whole bunch of different things stacked into one another. So like I was going through it and I was like, oh crap, this whole thing, this section pulls out to a whole bunch of other stuff. Like fuck. So yeah, I don't think I've gotten through. I haven't got through all of it. I've gotten through a fair amount of it, and I doubt we'll be able to get through all of it and talk and discuss about everything on the show today. But we'll have the good old college try, as they say, right?
Yeah, I mean, fire away. I thought it'd be good to come on and have a chat with you guys, especially coming from EVE Online. I mean, you guys have known me for a while. I've been an EVE Online player for 17 years. Like the world of New Eden and EVE Online means a lot to me, is just personally, like the friends I've made through EVE, the experiences I've had in New Eden. I mean, I have an EVE spaceship tattooed to my body. Like, it's an honor to be able to work at CCP on products like this, and I am comfortable that this is good overall for us. Like, if this was something that was threatening EVE Online, then I probably would not be very comfortable with it. So I'm very happy.
Yeah.
I know there's some controversy around a number of different topics, and honestly,
Yes,
it's all fairly understandable. Like, blockchain has a deservedly terrible reputation, but that doesn't mean that the technology itself is inherently bad. And I think it would be good to try and see what we can do, something a bit different.
Yeah. To some degree, we're here to gauge as to whether you fallen down the rabbit hole in as much as some people may think Hilmar has fallen down the rabbit hole. So, you know, I know you can't, you know, just, you know, you wouldn't be at liberty to talk or comment in any way, shape, or form in that regard. But like that's totally fine. I think probably some of the best thing that we can kind of do, at least at the start of this, so people are a little bit, you know, more informed, is to kind of go through a little bit of the nomenclature, the kind of like the terminology that we're probably going to use a fair amount in the show, just so people are a little bit more understanding as to quite what it is, right? I think probably the best one to go through like straight away is what a blockchain actually is, right?
So a blockchain is just it's a shared decentralized ledger at its core. You can think about it as a database that a bunch of people can access, and once stuff is written into the database, it is functionally immutable, which means it can't be changed. I say functionally because there are ways with like forking and things like that, and like regenesing. There are ways to do it, but functionally, it's not changed. Blockchain at its core is a technology that enables a bunch of different things. One example of which many people will be familiar with is cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are one use of blockchain. It is very over financialized as a technology, and a lot of dog shit, I would say, has come out of cryptocurrencies. There's a lot of bad stuff out there, which is why it has that bad reputation. Like I say, I think it's a deserved reputation. But it's important to remember that cryptocurrency is not exactly the same as blockchain. It's one use of blockchain as opposed to the same thing. I know some people, myself included, years ago, probably would have conflated the two of them side by side, and thought I think one is the other.
The thing is, a lot of people out there still do, and a lot of people, you know, think that blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs are literally interchangeable, like as a term, which isn't quite right. Right? You know, if you want to understand what a blockchain is at a fundamental level, aside, you know, beyond like a, you know, if you know, as an explainer, you know, as an alternative explainer to what Overloader just kind of said, the way I understand blockchain to be is basically, you know, it is just another type of database, right? Like, you know, EVE at the moment runs on databases, right?
One database,
but it runs on
one single Microsoft SQL database.
Yeah, there you go, right? So what we have at the moment is we're running on a database in EVE, right? That database is an editable database, right? The only difference between that database and a blockchain is that a blockchain is a non-editable database. It is an append-only database. So basically it means that you can't edit the things that are already there. You can just add to it, right? Which is why people call it a ledger. Because that's kind of what a ledger is a list of things that have happened that you can add stuff to the end of it. And so, like, when we're talking blockchain, it's just literally another type of database.
It's also non-editable. Don't try.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I think that's probably one of the bigger ones to kind of instill in people's minds that, like, you know, we're not talking about like some kind of evil thing. It's literally just a different type of database.
Yeah, and I think that's important to remember, is it is just a technology, and how people use technology can do different things. Like, to use cryptocurrency as an example, it's a form of currency. It has value because people attribute value to it. And then people do terrible things with these different cryptocurrencies. They do some great things as well, of course. Like people have raised tons of money for charity, but also there's been like tons of like rug pulls and scams. Now, this is not the fault of the technology. If it was, then everyone would be blaming cash for the same things, because cash is just another form of currency. And I tell you what, there's a ton of crime that uses cash, and same as like scams and phone centers and stuff like that. It's just a use of the technology. Now, I said it again before. I'll say it again. I get the reputation. I was definitely on that side many years ago as well. I even accidentally managed to make some money off of cryptocurrencies because I had some Dogecoin in like 2013. I was like, oh, what a great meme. Look at me with my Doge. And then forgot about it for a decade. And then suddenly Dogecoin got worth a ton of money. I was like, wait, what? So I immediately sold it and made a little bit of cash, which was quite nice.
That's,
yeah.
yeah. You have a tendency to sort of like purchase something, forget about it, and then find it and be like, oh, that's a nice surprise.
Yeah.
That was referencing yeah. That was a conversation before the show.
Oh, I see. Are you referring to my donut?
Oh, yes.
I for the uninitiated, I bought a donut this morning to have later. Put it in my bag and immediately forgot about it and found it just before the show. And was very pleased. I was eating a donut like 5 minutes ago. I was very happy about the fact that I just found a donut. It was a great moment.
Well, we have to go on a tangent. What kind of donut?
It was a cinnamon donut from a bakery in Iceland called Daig. I highly recommend it. It's super nice.
Is it like cinnamon just on the outside, or like the spiraled cinnamon?
No, it's not like that type of donut. It's like a cruller type donut.
Okay.
I don't know how they do it. It's like soft and hollow and super nice. I like them.
There you go.
If you're nice. Check out Daig. It's in a restaurant called Le Coq. So just head over to Le Coq and grab yourself a donut. So maybe I'll look back around onto Eve Frontier for a little bit, because I have some stuff which I think might interest you guys as Eve players, because I know it interests me for sure. So let me get my soapbox and stand firmly on it for a moment. So as you know, EVE Online, great game. I'm kind of partial to it. And it runs on I think called Stackless Python. Specifically, the version is 2.7. Stackless Python 2.7. Python was picked way back in the day to interact with the database when CCP were first developing it, and Stackless Python 2.7 came out in 2007, I think, and was deprecated in 2008 with the release of Python 3.0. Eve still runs Stackless Python 2.7. It has been running it for the whole time. CCP's been maintaining Stackless Python 2.7. Eve Frontier runs on the Carbon engine, which is the same engine as EVE Online. It made perfect sense for us to use the same engine, because the Carbon engine is the best engine in the planet for doing a multiplayer spaceship game. It just straight up is. So we started doing that, but we changed a ton of the physics and the way the game actually works. As part of this, we spent a lot of time and effort on the Frontier side upgrading Python 2.7. So Eve Frontier runs Python 3.12 on a totally virtualized cluster. Unlike Tranquility, which runs on hardware in London, Eve Frontier is 16 years of Python upgrades later and runs on a totally virtualized, infinitely horizontally scalable cluster. Now, the cool thing is these upgrades go into the engine themselves. So there's a number of instances where the base engine, which powers both games, has received significant upgrades that have benefited EVE Online. So if we just snapped our fingers and EVE Frontier just vanished right now, EVE Online has materially benefited from having the existence of EVE Frontier. Externally funded, different development team, and yet a bunch of that improvements to the engine and the way the game runs has been fed in to EVE Online. I think that's a pretty cool thing from an EVE player perspective, to see a game that I love to play and I love to be part of get improvements, essentially, I don't want to say for free, but essentially get these improvements kind of on the side as we're developing EVE Frontier.
That's pretty cool. I'm not sure if you do you know sort of like a lot of the like the big kind of points as to the difference between like stackless Python, was it 2.17 versus the one that it's running at the moment? Like
3.12.
Yeah,
yeah. There's
what are the main advantages to it as such?
It's just a way more modern version. Now, I'm not a software developer, just to be clear. Like the people that do this kind of stuff have galaxy-sized brains compared to my much more smooth product manager hat. But it is massive. Like the engineers have been almost, I mean, put it this way, whenever new things come into programming languages, right, and this happens every so often, new features, new technologies, and so on, either CCP had to develop it into stackless Python 2.7 themselves, or they just had to skip it. Now, with going up to newer versions of Python, you get tons of improvements over the years, and you no longer have to develop it yourself as well. So not only do you increase the velocity of your developers, because less of them are spending time just fixing the root language that you're using, but you get all these new features. Things work better that maybe just didn't exist back in the day, like Python 2. Whatever didn't have very much support for things like multi-threading, multi-cores, and stuff like that compared to later versions. It just wasn't as much of an issue back then. So
as in nearly nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like if you just close your eyes and picture what computers were like in like 2005 or so, like Windows XP, Intel Celeron processors, like just stuff like that, and then look at what we've got now with things like high-end Ryzen things with like 96 cores and stuff. It is a world of difference, and the technology that people can develop on. I think so. If you're a developer, right? So you'll have seen like the way languages and IDEs and software development has improved over the last like 15, 20 years. And that includes obviously like the CI/CD pipeline, like how we actually push stuff onto the live servers. So EVE Online's system for updating the Tranquility cluster. This is a fun little fact. It was an internal tool called Mr. Cluster. And thanks to eFrontier, Mr. Cluster has been taken out the back and shot in the head. So we deploy with a much simpler process that uses a bunch of like commercial grade alternatives, and it means that we don't have to support it. And that technology has been flowed into EVE Online as well. So that means that EVE Online's deployments are in a much better place than they've been for a long time. Less people having to spend less time just fixing bits and pieces. And we had like some of the fastest TQ startups recently, and some of that work came from work that was first tested on eFrontier.
So you're taking the aerospace approach to development.
If that's the approach, then yes, sure. I don't know the names, but yes, let's go for that. Aerospace sounds cool.
I mean, it's pretty much the same thing in space things, right? You develop all of these technologies to make it possible to go to space, to do things there, whatever it is, and then you take those things and apply them to stuff here on Earth, right? For one example, look at Velcro, right? Velcro was developed for the first lunar mission, and now we have it everywhere.
Yeah, I think the reason I brought it up is I just wanted to, again, as I said, I'm a long time EVE player. Like I get a lot of it. Like I'm not going to dismiss anyone's worries. Personally, I think that a lot of this stuff, like look at Game of Thrones season 8, right? Game of Thrones season 8 came out, and it was the amount of vitriol that came as response was huge. And the only reason it came, people were so angry about it, is because people cared so much and were so passionate about it. The worst possible response is apathy. That means nobody is actually engaged and nobody cares. EVE Online players are extremely engaged, and that means that they care a lot about what they're doing and what they're playing. And I see that as nothing but an amazing achievement in general. So I understand why some people can be like upset about things, because they're worried about like the safety and the health of their game that they love so much. It's a passion thing, it's not a bad thing. I'm not looking at people on Reddit being like, oh, these stupid Reddit warriors. I'm saying these guys love this game, and that's awesome. And the fact that we can do things in our game that will actually improve and make that game healthier, both from a business perspective and from like a technological perspective, it's really good in my opinion.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that the new product that you're working on has a lot of much improved Python stuff.
Yeah. Other
I know that
examples?
Python. Sorry.
I can give you some other examples of things that we're playing around with. Like some, I know we haven't talked much about gameplay. That's somewhat deliberate. There will be some point in the next couple of months. Obviously, there's a playtest. Everyone's welcome to sign up, but there'll be some more gameplay details in the future.
Quick question about the playtest as such. Is it a closed playtest or I mean, I say like it's an invite only playtest as such because
Anyone can register for it. We do have a kind of like soft cap in terms of how much we want to stress the systems, rather than just like opening the door and letting everybody in. And also because it's a closed playtest, it's still behind an NDA.
Okay.
Because some of the gameplay systems are just, as far as we're concerned, not quite ready for general public consumption.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that best foot forward and all that. But I mean, I can talk kind of more high level about some of the gameplay.
To some degree, my question with that was actually you kind of answered it because it is under an NDA. I was going to ask whether it was going to be something that we could share, like in terms of streaming or that kind of thing. But obviously, if it's under NDA, we can't. I do hope that at some point soon would be able to actually sort of, even if it's a closed or an invite only playtest after this one that's coming up. That we could at least see some gameplay or sort of, have people experience gameplay through a stream, that kind of thing. So
I agree. I'd love to get it to you guys as soon as possible. And when it's ready for that, then I'll let you guys know for sure. We have other improvements to the engine, for example.
Go for it.
Famously, EVE Online runs on a 1 second tick rate. eFrontier is currently running at 4 per second.
Interesting.
So it's only 250 millisecond tick rate, for example.
I would like to say, and I know that like a lot of people would kind of look at turn their nose up on a 1 second 1 hertz tick rate for a game, right? Especially when it comes to sort of combat, that kind of thing. But I will say that to some degree, actually in a fair few degrees in actual fact, the 1 hertz tick rate on the servers in EVE is kind of a blessing in disguise, because it also means that more people around the world can partake in the same experience with people at the same time. You don't have to be in the situation where you go, oh, we have to have a Northeast or we have to have a North America server, we need to have a European server, we need to have an Australian server, kind of thing, because the gameplay, degrades so significantly when you introduce, the amount of lag that you may have if you're connecting from, say, Taiwan, or if you're connecting from Sydney or whatever on to the servers in London, right? For example, the fact that everybody around the world can share in the experience because the server tick rate is low enough to allow that to happen, but still, but the general experience is built around that kind of server tick rate to the point where people don't mind that much. It's not a game of absolute reactions.
Yep, and this is
that is really good.
We still keep a lot of the more strategic. Like I'm a terrible Twitch shooter gamer. Like I'm awful. So I like things like Overwatch, where I could just be like a healer and just run around like healing people, because I just can't hit people when I have to like click on heads. I just can't do it. It's just my boomer hands are too slow. But EVE Online, it becomes more of like a thinking game. Like you say, you got that long time. Now there is some sort of fallacy to it in the sense that someone from Australia, like with the time their stuff lands in the servers in TQ, it queues everything up in the order it comes in. This is how the simulation is preserved. Its integrity is preserved. It's always in the order it comes in, which is why people in like London, for example, even though it's like a 1 second tick, if they're in at the start of that tick, their stuff gets executed first, which is why, like, if you have a gate camp, it's nice to have your tackler, like, living in London or something, versus, say, New Zealand. A quarter of a second is still a huge amount of time when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, it's a quarter of a second. It sounds like it's super fast, but if you think about it, it's actually not. Most times you would notice the difference between 10 milliseconds and 30 millisecond ping if you're playing a Twitch shooter. This is almost an order of magnitude slower than that. It's still not a Twitch game.
Yeah.
Well, but
Okay.
when we're talking about going halfway around the world, you are kind of getting to that kind of latency.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
it's still we're in the window, I would say.
It's in the window, yes, for sure. You have to be very far away to get past 250 milliseconds of latency.
Yes. Yeah, most of that latency actually tends to come from networking equipment as opposed to distance.
Routing through all so many different kind of nodes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's clearly a hidden nerve to all of the Australian players that they're too strong and naive.
Yeah, I mean that's just some of the things that we've been playing around with within the engine, and it's the same engine. So this is the kind of tech that suddenly then becomes a game design decision as opposed to a technological decision. So let's just use this 4-second tick rate as an example. It's running, it's working, everything's great. There's a whole bunch of systems that feed off of it. Technically, with the Carbon engine, EVE Online, if they wanted to, could do that, but that would change fundamentally a lot of the way EVE Online works. So it becomes a game design decision whether they want to, include that kind of change or not, and that is part of the separate teams thing. EVE Online has their own game design teams, their own gameplay engineers that are building and doing things for EVE Online. So just because something can improve part of the engine that we both share doesn't mean it has to be included in the others, which gives people more tools to do fun things in both games.
Nice.
There's a phrase, a rising tide lifts all boats. I think that applies here, and I think that applies a lot with the business as well. Eve Echoes, I don't play Eve Echoes. It's not really the game for me. But a lot of people come into EVE Online from Eve Echoes. They start in Eve Echoes, they enter the EVE Online universe, and then they move into EVE Online proper. We saw the same with Dust, and that doesn't just include players. That includes developers. CCP Logibro, for example, famously came in through Dust as a developer there, and also from tech. So things like a lot of the original work for the API and Crest actually were developed to support Dust integration within Eve. And now the way the EVE Online API, ESI, Crest, and so on has been extended over the years. A lot of that genesis around the time Dust was being built to support Dust. And yet it's become a huge, amazing feature of the EVE Online that we all love to play today. And you could argue, well, would it have happened without it? It's hard to say. We don't have a crystal ball, but it definitely influenced it and really lifted EVE Online as a product up, regardless of what you thought about Dust as a product.
Yeah, I was a fan of Dust. I mean, I bought a PS3 specifically to play Dust. Well, it was a I'll buy it. It's close to end of life anyway, but so it was fairly cheap. But I bought it sort of partly to play Dust, also partly as a Blu-ray player kind of thing. But yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. The issue that I had at the time, and I think it was kind of just one of those sort of things that was very immature at the particular point in time, but was very much the case of communications in the game, right? It was a bit awkward to kind of do, especially with people, in general on that kind of platform. So we had to have some workarounds in order to sort that out. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed Dust, and I'm, kind of fingers crossed, hoping that Vanguard is gonna, fulfill Dust and go further than Dust went. Yeah, so
I'm looking
fingers
forward
crossed on that.
to attempting to click on heads in Vanguard and probably being dunked upon.
Oh yeah.
I really cannot stress how bad I am. There's a reason I play EVE Online. I'm terrible at shooters. I can do other things. When I've got a second to think about it, I'm fine.
I have moments where I think I'm pretty good, and then I go play PUBG, and I'm like, I'm dead already.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Or he plays Tarkov with me.
I play Tarkov with. Yeah.
I mean, the last time I tried playing CS:GO was just a disaster, so I feel it.
Most of the
I've
time when I'm playing
actually-
Tarkov, I'm like, why have I just been killed by like one of our own players? Like what? Like, yeah, it's just one of those sorts of situations. Why? How am I dead from a grenade? Who threw a grenade? Oh, that was one of
Renthal.
us. That was a Renthal. Oh,
The
for
answer
God's
is a Renthal. If you ever wonder why you died to a teammate's grenade, it's a Renthal.
sake. Yeah. Anyway, so, I think there's a couple of kind of things that I think we need to like sort of clear up at the start of the show before we get like really into the white paper as such. All right. One of it is down to, and I've seen some of the sort of Reddit threads out there kind of thing, and some of the memes and that kind of thing. One of them is the way that whether Hilmar is still like being whether Hilmar was truthful and is still truthful in with regards to the team that's developing Eve Frontier is not pulling, like, the management is not pulling devs from Eve Online specifically, right?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. They have different reporting lines. They work for a different team, the EVE Online developers. Everyone who works at CCP Games is an adult and is entitled to apply for any jobs that they see that they are interested in. No one is ever shanghaied into coming to work on EVE Frontier. No one is assigned work on EVE Frontier taken off of EVE Online, for example. And like I sort of mentioned earlier on, some of the work that goes back in, I would argue almost it's the opposite. There's work being done on EVE Frontier, which is benefiting EVE Online. So it's we all work in the same office, most of us, but it's a separate part of the building.
Yeah. But the important aspect of that is nobody is being pulled from EVE Online against their will to work,
No.
for Frontier or on Frontier in any way, shape, or form. It is all voluntary. It is all, if you would like to work on the project, you can come work on the project, but that is up to you.
It's not that. It's not even that. It's if you would like to come work on EVE Frontier, look for the open positions that are available and apply for one. There's been some positions that have been applied for by people internally, which have resulted in them coming across. Some people left CCP and then came back to work on EVE Frontier. But it's not like you can just put your hand up and say, "I'd like to go work on that project." It's we have a separate hiring process, everything. So it's a separate team. Fundamentally.
Good, because I think there's rumors about that people are being seconded, and I just wanted to quell that.
I've seen the rumors. I have a chortle. I know there was a little one going around about CCP-B, for example. He's got the tag on the Frontier Discord server, eFrontier team. That's he helped us do a stream on Discord during one of our playtests, and to give him the roles to operate the streaming system within our Discord. I gave him that tag. I was like, there you go. You can set the stream up yourself. Have at it.
It'll be fine. There won't be any fallout in this whatsoever.
Yes, 5 minutes later, Reddit is on fire.
Yeah, I was like, yes, I remember that day when I was like, here, have this role. But this is just he helped us set it up. This was before we had our own community developer. Obviously, we have CCP Jotun who applied for a position, and we hired to be our community developer. He existed as a human being then, but he did not exist as a CCP developer. So CCP helped us, just like he does with Vanguard sometimes. Because they were all one big company. But yeah, no, he doesn't work on the EVE Frontier team. He's very much still an EVE Online homie.
Yeah, so we can say for certain to you guys out there, don't worry, CCPB is still working on EVE Online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And anybody who has transitioned to the transitional works on the Frontier team or on Frontier has done so willingly.
Yeah.
Cool.
There's not that many, just to be clear. Most of the team, like 90% of it or more, 95% or so, are all external hires.
Cool.
Like very, very few people have sort of come across. But like I say, some people came back. So that's just where it is. People are adults as it happens. Breaking news: adults with careers make choices for their careers. More
Amazing.
at 11. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same
Some
with
may
me.
think that's crazy talk.
Yeah. It's the same with me. Like, I had a different career. I was working in the aerospace industry for over a decade, launching things into space and so on. And as an EVE Online player. And after I got to learn a bit more about this project, I realized, like, hey, this is something that could be done right. Like, and if anyone can do it, it's definitely CCP. There's a lot of ways to do this very wrong, and I was like, I want to be part of making sure that we do it the right way, not the wrong way. So
yeah. Okay, so part 2 of the nomenclature kind of terminology sort of like breakdown as such. Let's break down a cryptocurrency or a kind of what a crypto. Should we break down what like a level 1, level 2 blockchain is, kind of thing, that sort of thing? At
sure,
all?
fire away.
So the blockchain that I believe we have, or that has been said that Frontier is built on, is Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum is a cryptocurrency as such. Like, how would you describe Ethereum? Would you describe Ethereum as a cryptocurrency or a blockchain? I believe you would. It's very much a
decentralized
cryptocurrency
platform. I would call it a decentralized platform.
Okay.
Like, there's a lot of computational applications being done on Ethereum. There's a currency aspect as well, obviously.
Yeah.
This is how kind of blockchains work in general, but they don't have to be intrinsically linked with each other. That's a level 1. That's like the top level blockchain. That's like lots of blockchains hang off of that and run like 10 blocks behind or something, and then roll up to the L1 blockchain every so often when they're kind of settled. And then you go down through like level 2, level 3, blah blah blah, as deep as you want.
I mean, if anybody who has like heard of a content creator called Dan Olson, he did a kind of a big breakdown, kind of like of NFTs at the time, in a big video called Line Goes Up. A lot of that is very dense in terms of trying to get through it and trying to understand like what's going on with it. The kind of issue I've sort of found with that particular video is it is starting to age a little bit now. There is, some changes, some advancements, some sort of tech that's kind of been added to blockchains and to cryptocurrencies that have, solved problems to some degree that aren't really talked about too much in that in that particular kind of video. And one of those is this kind of like layering, this leveling, right? And so what I understand about CCP's approach to using the blockchain and also sort of solving some of the issues that they have with, what you guys want to do in general, is solved by these layers, the sort of layering of blockchains, because it allows a little bit more expansion and allows a little bit more speed of processing, right? Because that was one of those are the two kind of things that really kind of were like a negative aspect when it came to trying to develop an actual game on a blockchain, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into some technical stuff,
right?
And I trust me, there's a bunch of really smart people that can explain all this a lot better than I can. But a lot of it comes down to speed of execution is a really good example. Like one of the first OG blockchains, Bitcoin, very slow, very expensive. You wouldn't want to do anything on that. Ethereum is a lot faster, and then with things like these roll-ups from different layers, you can get like the block length or the block time down to like 1 or 2 seconds. And then you can also do like settlements essentially. So you can do optimistic roll-ups where you essentially confirm stuff a little bit later. And this is essentially how a lot of games work. Usually you'll hear people say things like netcode, where like you're running a simulation on your computer that might be slightly different from someone else's, but then it kind of like balances out in the wash. If you've ever played like a sim racing game online, like you're not waiting for the exact location every time. Sometimes we have desync in Eve. It's all kind of similar. There's a bit of optimistic predictions going on, and you can do the same. I'm told we're using something called OP stack, and it's one of the sort of things that have been developed to solve these type of problems.
Nice. Okay, cool. So I think we should probably kind of, as we've spent 45 minutes kind of like, chilling out, getting to know, kind of doing a little bit of little bit of a little bit of kind of chilling or on the sort of sidelines as such, but we should probably like get into the meat of this white paper, right?
Go for it. Again,
Okay.
Not a technical person. I'll do my best.
Yes. I'm going to see if I can kind of find like keep up with some of the questions in chat as well, to sort of and pull them in when we when the conversation is in that kind of area, and maybe even ask them sort of hopefully those sort of questions get answered in the conversation anyway. But if not, then I'll see if I can kind of like interject them into the conversation as such. I'm just going to kind of quickly grab the actual white paper as such, and post it in chat. Here we go. There we go. So anybody who wants to kind of like just read along kind of thing, that's the white paper that we're kind of going to go through somewhat at breakneck pace to some degree. But yes,
this is after Mac told everyone that it is actually way longer than you first think it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to skip the the intro thing, the abstract thing. We're going to get into the philosophy and core beliefs, right? I think that's kind of like where we're going to be really kind of concentrating some degree. The philosophy, the digital physics, the economy, not too much the technology as such, but like we're going to try and have a chat about the core beliefs, the design principles, the philosophies, the idea of digital physics, which I think some people kind of would be like going, what the fuck? What is digital physics? Like, yeah, that term was like definitely one of those sort of things where I'm like, the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, that's one I know I can answer. So we'll get to that. We'll talk about that.
Okay, cool. Right. So, obviously, philosophy side of things, talking very much about how the original design of EVE Online rests upon, some core principles, namely death is a serious matter, that sort of stuff. Would you kind of want to give a quick pitch as to what the core idea behind why CCP wants to go this direction and use this particular kind of platform like blockchain, and sort of as to why it solves certain things specifically in the long run for CCP?
Sure. I mean, that's a question we could probably talk about for like a good hour by itself. So I'll do my best not to waffle on too much.
Okay.
But it depends kind of which principle you're coming at it. Like you can come at it from the technical side and talk about the technical reasons for making certain decisions, or you can talk about the philosophical side.
I think they sort of intertwine because, like, to some degree,
but you also have to separate them at times and put them back together again. It's a very very complicated topic.
Like the longevity of the idea of keeping EVE alive, like, is a philosophical kind of thing, but it also ties into, the idea, sort of one of the ideas why CCP's sort of decided to go the route that they've decided to go with EVE Frontier, right?
Yep. So one of our goals at CCP is simply EVE forever. And right now, if I don't know, like an asteroid was to land on, I'll tell you what, even better, if a volcano was to pop up underneath the CCP office right now and swallow everybody and everything, then 07 EVE Online, that would be it. Like it would just disappear. And there's many examples of games being shut down over the years, with their communities being fractured. Some of them moved into EVE, like back in the early days of EVE. Other games have been shut down over the years, and they're just gone.
Yeah, we've seen, like, there's been news reports of, like, game studios like having catastrophic fires that have literally like destroyed an IP. Like,
Yeah.
I don't
And-
recall with the specific one, but I know that happened like fairly recently within the last few years or something like that. Like, and they literally like killed a game entirely.
Doesn't
I
even
mean,
have
half the
to
Walls
be-
Republic, for example, they lost all their original models. I
Mm.
mean, these are physical, obviously, it's a bit different. But the idea is when we say E4Ever, with a topic like this, it's a really sort of deep topic and it becomes very high level. But essentially, we want this game to be fully capable of existing without CCP, without us as individuals. It should be able to just like running along with a bicycle, and you take off some training wheels, and then you push the kid off, and it just rides off into the sunset. Hopefully, not into traffic. That's kind of what we were doing as well.
Okay, cool. Sorry, that image that you put in. Yeah. Some out there may say that is kind of CCP's way of just trying to like, get out of the business of trying to run a EVE Online as such.
I would say it's the opposite. It's about setting up the game such that it can survive without us. Not because we want to feel needed or anything like that, but because it's almost like a gift to. This sounds really grandiose, but imagine like a gift to humanity. It's like, hello, you can never lose this now. As long as there are people who still wish to inhabit this world, the world will be there for you to inhabit. We can't take it away from you. Right now, if you read like the EULA, for example, for Valve, Steam, you don't own any of your games. If you upset Gaben, then he can take them all away from you. And if you upset Helmar, he can technically take away all your spaceships as well. Like this, you don't actually own anything in there, and you can be banned from the game. You can be excommunicado with something that can't be shut down, and you can't be removed from. It becomes your right as an individual to exist in this world that you choose to exist in. And this is very philosophical, and it's a very long-reaching goal. Like this is not a hey, we'll have that by May type deal. This is this is a multi-year, multi-decade type roadmap.
Okay, so how much of a headache is this currently being at the CCP legal team?
I'm sure there is probably some headaches in the CCP legal team, but we have not only do we have very good legal people. We have like external counsel in different countries for some of this stuff.
All right.
I am 100% not a lawyer, but I'm not concerned at this moment in time. So I guess I can probably just leave it at that. But it's a non-trivial project for sure.
Cool.
I'm not trying to say it's not. It is non-trivial.
I do kind of ask it in terms of like the legal side of things, and I understand completely that you're not a legal, and you're not in any sort of way connected to the sort of like the legal team at CCP, and you can't really talk to them because talk any like in any kind of authority regarding that. There has been some conversation, and there has been some sort of some commenting regarding the fact that on-chain assets are deemed to be legally taxable in some way, shape, or form by certain government bodies, depending on where you live, as such in the US, for example. I gather that is probably something that is on CCP's radar in some way, shape, or form. I hope that we hear some degree of, how you guys are gonna dot the I's and cross the T's on that, because it is probably something that is kind of to some degree concerning regarding this. And to be fair, this is sort of uncharted-ish territory when it comes to games. Like there has been on chain kind of games, but probably not to this sort of extent, this sort of level, this scale, right?
Yeah, I can't really talk about the legal stuff because I simply don't understand it well enough. It's not my wheelhouse. So I'll probably just steer clear of that topic to avoid causing any confusion. Basically,
that's fine. Just so long as you're aware that there are, some concerns, some criticism, some comments going on regarding that, right?
I mean, this is honestly, it's a good thing people are asking questions. This is why we've been doing playtests. This is why we've been inviting people to join them. This is why we've been fairly open with things like the white paper. We want people to look at this stuff. We want people to play. We want people to give feedback. We want good, positive, and negative feedback. Like, there's no such thing as bad, detailed feedback. Essentially, like if something is not good, we want to hear about it. If there's concerns, we want to hear about it. Like, this is why we're trying to be as transparent as we realistically can with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just you kind of twigged my memory on a particular creator. I think he
Is
runs
it Dan Olsen again?
No. It was I think the guy who does Everyday Awesome, or is it Everyday Awesome? I'm not entirely certain. He basically did a sort of a presentation to NASA, talking about a bunch of different things, but he was talking about positive and negative feedback loops, right?
You're talking about Smarter Every Day.
That's the guy. Not Everyday Awesome, Smarter Every Day, right? I'm kind of his name kind of like, I'm not getting it at the moment, but like,
Destin.
yeah, he was talking. Destin, yeah. Thank you very much, Sloth. He was talking very much in terms of like positive and negative feedback loops and how important negative feedback loops are, not just positive feedback loops. And it is a very, very, very,
I've always worked
good
in this thing. It's like it's a matrix of feedback where basically you have on one axis positive and negative, and the other hand you have general and specific. So positive specific feedback is saying, I like this because of X, Y, and Z. And negative specific is, I don't like this because of A, B, and C. These are both very valuable. This is cool, nice, but it doesn't actually tell me anything. Like, why do you like it? And this sucks. Again, thanks for your opinion, man, but that doesn't help us like try and make it better. So this is why like we talk about specificity in feedback is so valuable. And again, this is why we want as many people to come in and try this stuff while it's pretty early like this, and get that feedback. It's valuable. Like we listen. We listen a lot. I probably spend too long reading feedback sometimes, but it's valuable. It's worth it, and it helps us make a better product for everybody, basically.
Yeah, which is why when you say you don't like something for a particular reason, state that particular reason. Like, don't just say you don't like it. I'm concerned about
you don't like it. It just doesn't help us improve it. That's all.
I'm concerned about this aspect or this feature because of this reason is a lot more useful than just blockchain sucks. I
agree.
But yeah, so going down a tangent as always. Kind of forgotten exactly quite where we were when we started this particular tangent. As always. But yeah, so philosophy. The core reason why we're kind of why you guys have chosen blockchain as such, mainly down to sort of like the capacity of being able to have the game run by itself without really any significant or any like big continual sort of interaction or input from you guys, right?
Yeah, it also gives a lot of autonomy to the people who choose to inhabit the universe. Occasionally, probably quite often, I'll use EVE Online as examples because I know it's a shared language that we all understand and probably most of the people watching this understand. A lot of this can be applied to other topics, but it's very easy to use EVE as that shared model of thinking. Look at the CSM. All right, the CSM is a great institution, but they'll be the first to tell you that the CSM has no real power. Like if CCP says, "Hey, we're going to do X," and the CSM says no, CCP can choose to listen to the CSM. Of course, everyone can choose to anybody, but there's no real recourse. And the CSM have said numerous times over the years, X, Y, Z. We told them about this. We didn't like it. Blah blah blah. Like, this is just part and parcel of existing in a virtual world that belongs to somebody else. The only way to introduce something as canon into the EVE universe it comes through CCP, essentially. In a world like EVE Frontier, where it's kind of a decentralized authority, there could be an equivalence of a CSM4 Frontier, where the elected representatives would have real power, almost in the full end sort of decentralized system. And this could be way off, and it could be even not looking like this, but you could imagine a system where the Frontier CSM is actually able to remove CCP as the developer of the game and get another studio to take over because they feel like it's being mishandled. Like the people who choose to inhabit this virtual world would have the power over the world they live in. I guess that's a pretty wild, far-off thought.
It is a wild and far-off thought. I have like some serious, like I wonder how legally that is kind of like would be enforceable in any way, shape, or form. And I know that like, to some degree there would be, you got stakeholdership in that regard. So that would, you can kind of run sort of a legal-ish kind of aspect to that, right? So, yeah, I wonder, I do wonder with regards to sort of that, quite how that works, but obviously that is quite far down the road in terms of, the application of this, of governance and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. But that's
really
that's an answer to one of those questions of like, what can you do with a blockchain that you can't do without it? That's one of those answers. Like there are many things that you can do with blockchain that you can also do with another piece of technology, like like you said,
yeah,
it's kind of a fancy database. But stuff like that you can't really do.
Yeah, I do kind of. So I think also one of the kind of things that confuses a lot of people is the idea of distributed computing, like versus the idea of what we have with EVE Online right now, where the computing is done on a set of servers, right? I think a lot of people kind of are a little bit confused in terms of how distributed computing actually works when you don't have a centralized area to sort of run the simulation as such, right? Because everyone kind of assumes that the simulation is run on a single kind of server, but a big, huge, freaking beefy ass server, right?
Yeah, and decentralized computing is just putting that load across multiple machines. Really, the EVE Online server is not one server. It's actually multiple servers that are running together in a distributed system. It's just a sort of a logical other extreme, distributing across more systems.
Yeah, it is, but it kind of also isn't, because like I know that there are like a whole litany of different aspects of the experience in EVE, right? Like you have all the skills involved in your character, all of the the various kind of aspects of how the ship is kind of designed, like the chat system, the market system, all that kind of stuff, right? It all kind of gets interwoven into the experience that we enjoy when we play the game. But the actual simulation of the the space is kind of done on a single server as such, on a single process. That was kind of one of the sort of like one of the decisions that was made, that that it would run on a single process on Python, back when I believe it was thought that single process CPUs were the way, before multi-process CPUs really kind of came into being the better method of doing things, right? I think there's just a lot of people who don't understand or don't seem to kind of get the idea of how you can break up that process of running the actual simulation side of things into a whole bunch of different computers distributed all across the world and still have it performant enough.
So the good thing is we don't have to essentially deal with that for a long time. And like,
oh, okay,
yeah, this is part of like long-term roadmap. Like if you read it, you'll notice like a lot of it is fairly centralized, and control is held quite firmly by CCP for quite some time as we slowly decentralize more and more of it. But this is very much not an overnight thing. We'll have elements of the game which will start off as mildly decentralized, and over time slowly decentralize the whole thing. This also goes hand in hand with the open sourcing of the Carbon engine as well. This is driven as part of that, so that the whole thing eventually becomes one big open source project. I mean, you can already access most of our blockchain stuff is on GitHub right now. It's been online and accessible for builders to play with for about 3 months. You can go look at it. We had our first external code submission into the repo a couple of days ago. It was just correcting a spelling mistake, but it's the thought that counts.
Was it Dirk?
No, it was just I don't know who it was, but there's right now I can confidently say eFrontier developed by CCP Games and one other person. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
kind of
Nice.
neat that one little guy who's just corrected one spelling mistake. He's now essentially in the code base, which is kind of cool.
That's not bad. Awesome. Right. Sorry, I'm kind of wondering where to go specifically in
I mean, don't
regards
worry.
to this.
It's taken me like a year and a half to grok a lot of this stuff as well. Like, I don't expect, since this came out on Thursday, I don't expect you to have a complete and total understanding of it either. So it's a hideously complicated topic, and it crosses some boundaries.
To some degree, I think people kind of like reel back a little bit because a lot of the aspects of people getting rug pulled and having kind of scams run on them is very much a part of down to the process or the whole kind of like spiel of it being extremely complicated. And although this is still complicated, it is probably complicated for a good reason rather than just complicated for a means to basically subvert people, right?
Yep. And there's a lot of this complication can be abstracted, and that's kind of one of our main goals is we're building a game, and part of the technology that's used in the game is blockchain. Like, we're being very upfront about that because there's some stigma, but at the end of the day, if you, in EVE Online, right, if you undock in your Titan, you just did a database transaction. Congratulations, you're a database engineer. If you sell something to somebody in the game, guess what? That's a database. But you don't care. You don't care that you're doing database transactions. You just undocked your cool, shiny spaceship. That's what you care about. The goal is to be basically the same. Like, you don't care what is happening underneath. Like, when you jump your Titan into another system, like, there's a bunch of things happening. Like, the processes are being moved around between different Sol nodes and the Tranquility cluster, running in a server in a room in London, which is staffed by people, has HVAC systems all running, blah, blah, blah. It's all this underneath complexity is happening. But from your perspective, you're just riding in with the boys, to go either like save a tackled Rorqual or something like that. That's the part that you care about, the experience, the in-universe experience of what you're doing. We want it to be the same. You won't necessarily care. You won't need to interact with a lot of this stuff. It's not like you have to set up a blockchain wallet to start doing X, Y, and Z to just play the game. You can just play a game with spaceships, and if you have fun, great. And some things you do in it might involve a blockchain somewhere in the tech stack. Do you need to care? Possibly not.
Okay. Yeah. So, from a philosophy sort of standpoint, looking at the white paper, in terms of the core beliefs, right? Kind of looking at the virtual nations and digital sovereignty kind of thing side of things. We aim to transform an approach by creating a world where digital property rights are not only immutable but self-governing. The kind of concern to some degree that I think some people at least would have is the sort of like self-governing side of things, because governance and sort of like the sort of the way that social groupings kind of work can be extremely complex, and trying to sort of figure out and sort of plan for all the eventualities of that kind of thing to be able to distill it into code is fraught with a lot of potential pitfalls. I think there's a fair amount of people who are somewhat concerned in terms of that, in terms of self-governing.
Yeah, I mean, that just
Have you guys thought in that kind of realm, in terms of like the pitfalls and how to sort of go about that, or is that like part of the process of like slowly maturing the game? Like,
it's part of the process. Like I
okay,
sort of alluded to, there's it's a long roadmap, and a lot of this stuff will get slowly enshrined, to give us the opportunity to not just jump in, version 1, see you later, enjoy. It's like, going to slowly increase where the boundary is, over time as we mature the game and the product overall. I mean, that's a very, very technical kind of bit to get into details, which I'm not well equipped to deal with, and I don't think we have. If we had the solution, it'd be in the paper. It's something we're still working on, and we will continue to work on for probably years to come.
yeah, and there was a mention that the white paper is going to basically grow. It's going to basically, be edited, be added to, be changed in certain ways, shapes, or forms, as the whole as eFrontiers kind of progresses, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think some people kind of wonder whether, using a blockchain is the best course of action for this sort of thing, because a lot of the criticism that comes with, somebody basically adding blockchain to whatever, right? It is kind of like whether blockchain is basically a solution that's looking for a problem, and whether it's a solution that works better than another solution, right? I think to some degree, some of the aims that CCP kind of wants to do in terms of making the game less reliant on them specifically, less reliant on you guys, to keep it going, keep it running, and sort of to open it up to more people, or open more of the game up to people to edit, is potentially viable. But there's also a lot of pitfalls with regards to just the level or the capacity of the system to be able to actually compute everything that's required. There's a bit sort of like heavily into the actual page that kind of, or heavily into the white paper that kind of describes this a bit better. I'll see if I can find it real quick. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? It's regarding the amount of transactions, the amount of like computations that happen in Eve, just on the market alone, and then in general.
Yeah, it's about 1 billion transactions a day.
Yeah, and it's one of those sorts of things where, do is CCP confident in the capability of the technology and the progress of technology that like we'll be able to get to the point where completely on chain it will be able to keep up?
Yeah, given enough time, absolutely. I mean, if you go back to 1997 and tell some people in a sweaty Icelandic office, hey, you're going to build a Microsoft SQL database that's going to do 1 billion transactions a day regularly for nearly 20 years, I think they would also be like, that's witchcraft. Like that would have seemed completely unfeasible back then. Like not even pretend feasible. Like, oh yeah, maybe we could see that. No, that would have been just nonsense. And I think the inevitable march of technology will continue, and a bunch of this stuff we're already seeing like improvements regularly in this kind of tech. So
Okay.
We're pretty confident on that. Just because the solution for some of it doesn't exist right now, there's a lot of very smart people working on a lot of very cool things.
Okay. So that section was in blockchain, in literally the title section of Blockchain Foundations. The sections kind of that I was kind of interested in with regards to this particular conversation was, for context, Ethereum currently handles about 1.3 million transactions per day, and that is basically the entire network kind of like handling that kind of thing, which is barely enough to support EVE Online's market system, which handles on average 1 million daily transactions, let alone the actual like full simulation, the full kind of like interactions per day in Eve, which you alluded to, the fact that it's roughly 1 billion transactions per day. There are obviously some techniques of being able to kind of increase that amount. The other kind of issue that I think a lot of people have is the cost, right? And like let's not like beat about the bush here. Like
Nope.
CCP does have costs in keeping the game running as such. Keeping EVE Online running as such. I don't know quite how much that cost stacks up to the cost of potentially running, something similar on, even on a sort of lower level, on a blockchain as such.
So
I assume that it is quite significantly more.
Well, my dear McLeod. Let me firmly climb upon my great soapbox. So
that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here. Like, it's a very good soapbox. It's a Tech 2 soapbox. Very good. All right. So cost. We all care about cost. We all want to do things, and there's this whole thing talking about like, oh, there's fuel and cost for everything. Like, what does that mean? Okay, so in general, everything has a cost anyway. If I can take this to its logical extreme on the argument, okay, this is going to come off somewhat facetious, but bear with me. Let's say you are a mission runner in EVE Online, and you have a Raven, and you wish to go do some missions, okay? And you need to bring some ammunition for your missiles, or for your launchers. You want to bring some missiles. So you either build the missiles yourself, which means you're exchanging your time for missiles, or more likely, you probably go to the market, and then you either buy it with ISK from that you have earned via time, or via buying Plex on the New Eden store and selling. Okay, so now you go off in your Raven with your missiles, and you start firing those missiles. Now, those missiles have a tiny cost now. Every time you fire and shoot a rad, you're incurring a very, very small cost. So the question then becomes, okay, well, I mean, this is such a tiny cost, I guess it doesn't really matter. But where's the line then? Is it tiny amount doesn't matter, tiny amount times 2 doesn't matter, but suddenly a tiny amount times 3, oh, suddenly it does matter. So the logical kind of like conclusion is if everything has a cost, where is the point where cost matters? And this will vary from person to person, and this all comes down to the fundamental concept of value as its own thing. Value is a human creation. Like value, nothing is valuable just because it exists. It is valuable because someone else will exchange something in return for it, whether that is straight up money, whether that is time, whether that is other objects of value. Everything only has a value because we agree it has a value, and that can be just abstracted all the way down to pretty much anything. And there's a cost for doing this thing in EVE when you undock and go shoot things, because there's, like you said, there's a server infrastructure that has to be maintained. There's developers, there's rent for the buildings, there's electricity, there's HVAC. All these costs are completely transparent to you as a player. Like, you don't need to care about it. You just want to undock with your cool spaceship and go blow stuff up, like we all do. And most of us don't care about it, and most of us don't even think about it because we pay either a subscription or you Plex, and if you Plex, that is just because you're buying something off of the market with your time. You've exchanged your time for money, which you then turn into Plex, which you then turn into more time again. Like, it's just this constant loop of value. And with, for example, when you do a transaction in eFrontier, if it involves the blockchain, you don't care, you don't pay any gas. It just happens underneath. It's just part of CCP's cost of doing business. just like paying for the rent in the server room in London. It's just part of the cost of doing business that's rolled in. So you don't need to worry about it as a player.
Okay.
So, can I get off my soapbox? Was that suitably soapboxy?
I think they were suitably soapboxy. I'm sure that there's a bunch of conversations that we can have around that, and especially with regards to fuel, because like there is an aspect of like the digital physics and like how the economy and the sort of like the inputs and outputs of the sort of the system or the sort of environment that you want players to sort of to enjoy themselves in is kind of put together. Because there is some sort of philosophical, some sort of I don't want it to sound condescending, but somewhat preachy sort of rhetoric-y kind of stuff in the white paper that sort of sounds a bit like, you know, we hope or we expect that this to happen, where it's more along the lines of like, no, you kind of hope that that's what's going to happen, but you don't know for an absolute fact that that's how that's going to happen.
If we knew the future, I'd be buying lottery tickets right now if I knew the future.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. I get the point. There's uncertainty, but you have to plan for what you believe to be the goal, and like that's what we're doing with this white paper is setting out our vision. And vision doesn't mean this is the only way this can happen. It just means this is what we think it will look like, and this is the plan that we're working towards because we think it will look like that. And here are the steps we're starting on this journey to get to what we see as this grand vision. That's the purpose of the white paper. It's not to say this is exactly how it will look in X amount of years. It is saying this is what we think right now based on our current understanding.
Okay. Do you think that it is understandable or in some way, you know, okay from a sort of a logical kind of from a understandable logical kind of standpoint that you know, CCP could still be drawing in a significant kind of amount of money from players even when they're not like actually paying for the upkeep of the game?
I'm not sure I follow your question.
So for example, if in the situation where the game is, you know, being fully held up by the blockchain, there's no cost associated with actually running the game anymore in any particular kind of way, shape, or form. The technologies that keep the game constant, keep the game kind of running, keep the game kind of like bug-free and sort of updated to modern current technologies are being kind of developed a lot by pretty much all third parties because the code is open source, and it is being updated and fixed by the community pretty much entirely, right? Like the idea of CCP being exceptionally hands off with this game, right? There was also a mention that I think it wasn't in the white paper, but it was in the FAQ, maybe, that like there would still be a premium aspect to Eve Frontiers in some way, shape, or form. Do you think it's acceptable for CCP to kind of be running or be still pulling money from players for that?
I mean, I think there's a bit of a slight misconception, I think, because if that was the scenario, first of all, I think it would be decades down the line. But if that was the case, where it was all completely decentralized like that, then our job would be done.
Okay.
Like, not only would there not be like a gated thing in terms of things like subscriptions and premium services and stuff like that CC would be providing, other people could also be providing them. It could be a world in this far future where CCP is one of the people that make a client for the game.
Okay.
And you choose to interact via this client. Like if you use like Streamlabs, for example, you can pay to use Streamlabs, or you could use OBS.
Yeah.
As an example, one's a premium subscription service, and one's and it's of an open source thing.
Okay, yeah,
and other people can just use the straight up raw OBS. Like that's. I mean, we are decades away from this kind of stuff, so it's very sort of pie in the sky, hard to predict. You know, there's like a branching path of infinite futures, and it's down a couple of them. So it's a really far off question, but it's a good question. It's something to think about because that delves us straight back into like the whole like hyper philosophical stuff.
Yeah,
Why I think a lot of this is actually quite interesting.
Yeah, that is kind of like one of the kind of interesting aspects of it. And I do see kind of the comments, a couple of comments, kind of like, wait, the whole game is going to be open source. I mean, that's the entire idea. Eventually, is that Carbon Engine is going to be open source, so it's going to be people are going to be able to update it with whatever kind of aspect that they do.
This is a good time to bring up the digital physics because I think this is extremely pertinent to this particular.
Yeah, like totally.
Right, so shall I give a little intro to what digital physics is because it's.
Have at it, man. Like, yeah, go for it.
So digital physics is essentially the rules of the universe that we are all beholden to. In our universe, this is straight up the laws of physics. And the laws of physics were written once, Big Bang, poof, physics exists, okay? And then everything that's ever happened since then is just based on all these laws being applied in different ways. This is how we end up, sitting, talking right now over a bunch of fancy pieces of metal and dead dinosaurs pushed together. And yet you're watching me from your house. And this is all following basic rules of physics. Now, it's a very complicated rule set of physics. And digital physics is essentially the same thing, and the level of complexity can go from as simple as one rule all the way up to like our existing universe of physics. But fundamentally, everything is just based on those rules of physics. Now, a really good example, and one that exists in EVE Online as well, is location. Okay, every item in EVE Online has a location.
Yeah,
right? You can't just teleport it around. You can't. Oh, you can if you sign up, but that's following the rules of physics. But let's say like you sell me a ship in EVE Online and it's in Jita. Just because I've bought it and I live somewhere else doesn't mean that I now have the ship in my location. I have to fly over there because the law of physics that we're talking about here is location of items. It is enshrined in the rules of the universe. You cannot just teleport it around. You have to go get it. And that is a basic rule of digital physics. And that's one that we all adhere to within EVE Online. You have to do that. You cannot just teleport stuff around. If you could, then like if every single person in the game was able to just magically teleport resources around, it would be a very different game. Very different game completely. So what we want to do is start to enshrine some of these like really base level rules. Location is a great example in the immutable laws of the universe. And as soon as that is enshrined, it means that we can let people compose with these rules. So you start to then give with one rule. Location of items. There's not a huge amount you can do, but you could make like a logistics service. Now people will pay you to move stuff around, for example. PushX is a great example of this in EVE Online. They are just composing on top of an existing rule. They can't break it. The more rules we can enshrine, the more complicated things people could start to push together and make their own thing on top of. So in a world where you can start to make your own ships in the game, you can't just suddenly like code, oh, this ship's going to have infinite speed and do infinite damage. Because just like real world, you can make a car and then you can make a much faster car, but it will probably cost a ton more time and effort to do so. And I can't build a car that will go like 800 miles an hour. Like that's when you're getting into like top end engineering, like thrust SSC and things like that, like ridiculous one of one technological marvels. But the rest of us are driving around in essentially the same laws of physics with cars that go at different speeds depending on how much we're willing to spend on them. And it's the same thing. You're just pushing together existing laws and composing them into further and further things. So by enshrining these rules into digital physics that are immutable on the blockchain, we can allow people to start to create with them in their own things. You can't do that in EVE Online because obviously these rules aren't enshrined. You could make, I could go in and make a ship that does like 1 million meters per second if I wanted to. I'm sure the game designers would come find me and shoot me, but I could do it.
Not that anyone here has done that.
Point.
So you're saying that, like, there is a potential possibility of being able to stack, potential engines on top of engines on top of engines on top of engines, but it will, have a horrendous fuel usage, but it would be able to potentially go.
Depends on the rules of physics within the game. Basically, like if like, can you put 5 Corvette engines in one car and make it go 5 times faster? Or realistically, are you going to go a lot slower because you're carrying around 4 useless engines? You know, like that laws of physics will let you try it, but is it going to work? Is it going to be cheap? Probably not. But
I
you
mean,
can try.
Yeah,
technically, you could have one engine per tire.
You could, but that'd be a hideously complicated piece of machinery. I would love to see it.
well, you
Especially-
say
that's
that.
that's what electric cars are,
electric
though.
car, yeah, that's what electric
I
cars
was
are.
about to
Like,
say.
Yeah. I was talking Corvette engines here. So,
I mean, it'd be a big car, but you could still, I guess, technically, you could still do it. It would just be like, Jesus Christ, why would you go that direction?
that's digital physics. That's the
But yeah.
concept within digital physics. Enshrining these rules, and we will enshrine more and more of them as the years go by. And by enshrining them with an open source game engine, it lets people build their own things within the rules.
And so I get the kind of like the aspect of kind of, you know, enshrining these rules for people to be to have a solid base to depend upon when it comes to sort of playing the game and you know how and composing in the game, right? My concern is like, you know, how composable these things are, and how complex these kind of things have to be in order for it to actually be, you know, for it to be interoperable with everything, right? And how many times that like you know CCP is going to have to go in and tweak things every so often in order to actually sort of make things work here there and everywhere, because like I get the it's a really kind of interesting idea of being able to just say that like everything will be interoperable, everything will be able to work with each other regardless. But like I always seem to get the impression from, you know, actual kind of development that it's not that easy. That in actual fact there's always a myriad of different issues that you have to kind of resolve and, you know, work around.
That's also because generally we don't build and design games using like rules of physics. You design them around concepts, and then you make them into the physics afterwards. This is sort of like flip that other way around, which is why it's going to again be a multi-year process. Like it's not an easy thing.
Okay.
And just because we don't necessarily understand something at this moment in time doesn't mean that we can't make good use of it. Now, composability is a really cool topic because EVE Online has buckets of it. Like a really basic example, take your ships, okay? You have a ship, and you have a bunch of rules you have to follow. There are high slots, mid slots, low slots. There are rig slots. There's a cargo capacity. There's a couple of other bits and pieces, maybe a drone bay. And your high slots, you can only put certain things in them. You can only put maybe a medium guns on a medium guns slot. You can't put a large gun on a frigate, for example. But when you have these basic set of rules, suddenly you have people creating all sorts of weird and wacky and wonderful fits and different ways to play the game. You know, there's someone roaming around in a battle procurer. It was not designed to be a combat ship, but yet people using the rules presented to them composed on top of that and came up with a new type of gameplay. Like this is all composability is setting out a set of defined rules and then letting people have fun with them. And I mean, Phantomite's here now. I see he does a ton of like wild and wacky, wonderful fits in like low site roaming around and stuff like that. He doesn't just
sounds like an insult to my fitting skills.
See, well,
maybe
the
he
game
should do a bit less wacky fits in the AT though.
there we go.
You got me on that one.
Also, welcome Phantomite to the show.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
man.
Carry
Yeah.
on. I was enjoying this explanation.
So, and that's kind of interesting because, like, I think there's been some screenshots and stuff that some people have been kind of tearing apart of the of eFrontier, and you know, some people kind of going, "Hang on, why is there a low slot item in a mid slot? Why are there, you know, rig slots in low slots areas and that kind of thing?" And I think it's one of those sorts of things where fundamentally, sort of the way that the ship is kind of laid out, or at least the fitting screen is laid out, is a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is just a caveat. That is those screenshots are using.
Still work in progress, right?
I mean, not only they're work in progress, they're prototypes. So they are actually,
Okay.
like I say, we're using the Carbon development engine, which is what
Mhm.
powers both games. Up until now, it only ever powered E1 line, so there was a bunch of stuff that's fairly hard coded in that we've been kind of teasing out. So things like certain UI elements, we can prototype super fast by using existing systems like the fitting window to like make new things and drag them on, rather than have to build a new fitting window right now and then.
Okay.
Stuff like that, especially like UI elements, are changing, and entire systems are being rebuilt. So,
Yeah,
it's an
upended and
early development
completely
game. There's a
rethought.
lot of stuff being changed around.
Yeah, because like in the white paper, you kind of go into ship architecture and essentially refer to a ship's internal architecture revolving around two networks: a power network and a data network. Whether this, is in particular kind of related to any particular area on the ship fitting window, I have no idea. But I would when I did see that, I did think to myself, like, I mean, that is one way of looking at ship architecture. If the ship the ship in question is specifically very like not organic, let's put it that way, right? And so my thought process is like, I hope maybe somebody at on the Frontier team kind of isn't kind of hard coding this into, this is how all ships will always be, kind of thing, and they will always only have like a power network and a data network. Because it would be kind of cool if we could actually have organic ships that have not just a power network or a data network or those sorts of things, but have different types of networks for different sort of things.
Yeah, and in the far future, the cool thing is, as long as it follows the rules, you could make it yourself. Like, you don't have to wait
So
for
long
us
as
to
it
make
follows the rules, the
Digital
digital
physics.
physics, right?
Yeah,
That's
cool,
enshrined.
cat.
Okay. Because like it was in that drop down of digital physics, so I was a little concerned in terms of like whether these sorts of particular things were going to be absolutely enshrined.
No, those are just applications in this case of physics. Like, they're like second layer, if you want to think of it like that. And a lot of this stuff,
Okay.
especially when it comes to like architecture and things, is still in development.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
cat wanted to come and say hello.
Hey, welcome, kitty. But yeah, cool. So there's a degree of like like a degree of players being able to potentially change that sort of aspect.
Mhm.
In the game, which is kind of cool. All right.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of digital physics. One of the things we talk about a bit is the idea of like an unstable universe with probabilistic outcomes. And the easiest way to talk about that is to just simply use real life as an example. The weather. All right, the weather follows fundamental rules of physics, like the rest of us do in the universe. We're all stuck following the rules of physics. We're very good these days at predicting the weather. We have like giant supercomputers crunching numbers, and we can say, hey, tomorrow it's going to be sunny. We're not always right. We get it wrong. There's an inherent chaotic unstableness and inability to fully predict every single thing in the universe to accurately predict the weather. But we can get pretty good at it. And it's the same kind of thing. We want to build systems that you can probably get good at predicting them, but you'll never really be able to be 100% accurate all the time because of some inherent chaos. So I think that adds a lot of.
And it's
Cat, what do you want? Is this what you want?
Okay. I get the idea of probabilistic kind of aspects of the environment and of the model in the sort of like the universe model in general kind of thing. People getting to grips with the idea of a quantum universe that we live in general, it is kind of a bit revolutionary, a bit kind of like difficult to kind of like really wrap your head around, but like at the end of the day, that is the reality that we live in anyway, to some degree. I just hope that it isn't taken to such an extreme level that I've seen in certain other games. Like I've seen this is especially kind of especially kind of an issue when it comes to crafting. Manufacture, all that, all kinds of sorts of things. A lot of people get a little bit agitated when they have to construct something 5,000 times in order to get the item that they actually were trying to build initially. Anyway,
that's sort of like a straight up RNG system, which
yeah,
we're not super interested in just adding a random number generator to things.
okay.
I mean, I could make a slight like analogy to things like abyssal modules. You know, you could sit and roll them for hour after hour after hour until you get the exact one you're looking for. Like that's I would say that's very similar. There's a native RNG around that. Imagine there was some systems where like you realize that as you're rolling them, that if you're in like an Amar space, you're getting certain aspects of the rolls are becoming more consistent. You know, that's suddenly adding more than just an RNG that makes the sliders go up and down, but it's adding some sort of chaotic but still deterministic. Okay, well, if I want this web to get the extra bonus on range, but to have a worse penalty on web speed, then I go to an Amar system and I roll, and I'm gonna be able to influence it like that.
A bit like climate, like you can only grow certain crops in certain climates.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's good. That's probably a better analogy than my weird one about abyssal modules. Abyssal modules, by the way, fun fact. Those are singletons.
That word came up a fair amount in like the sort of like the end kind of areas of the white paper. Like, could you describe kind of like what that term means in the white paper as such?
No problem. So a singleton is something that exists entirely of itself, and you can prove it as such. Usually, so let's say you have 10 ships in EVE Online, and you stack them. You have no idea which one is which. You unstack them, and then you stack them again. Poof, they're all gone. So these are what's called fungible, in the sense that it's like money is fungible. You can't tell. It doesn't matter £1 coin from another £1 coin. Really, in terms of its currency value. But if you sort of engrave on one coin, now this becomes non-fungible because it is unique and you can always prove it is that particular one. That's kind of a forced analogy, but this essentially is what abyssal modules are. Because when you have a web, it's just a web. It's one of many webs. It's fungible with other webs of the same type. Tech2 status webifier, the same as every other Tech2 status webifier in the game. There's no uniqueness to it. If I jumble them up, you can never figure out which one's yours. But if you start rolling them as abyssal modules, now suddenly every single one is unique and can never be mixed up with other ones. So when something is a singleton, it always has its own uniqueness about it. Now, imagine a world where I'm like, hey, do you want to buy my Titan? It's an avatar, and you're like, yep, I've already got one. I'm in Goons. I have plenty of avatars. But I say, yeah, but look, check it out. I can prove to you this one was in the Battle of Betakar and dealt the Doomsday that
make me go insane, Ithaca. You're going to make me go absolutely insane.
Imagine you could like prove
exactly my proposal a year ago, but go on.
You prove it's in Betakar. You can prove it was in like X-47. You can say, yeah, it was in this fight here. It got these killing blows on these ships. Now I'm like, you can have this one, or you can have one I've just built. Which would you prefer? Because suddenly, this one's more interesting. I know for like I keep old ships that I've had in EVE Online. I retire them, and I have a little like, I guess, museum in Amar of ships that I flew in like Alliance tournaments and in like the Amar Championships and things like that. I never repaired them. They're still sitting smoldering. Every so often I get in them and have a look, and the fire comes out.
I'm still going somehow.
Yeah. No one's bothered putting it out for all these years. But I can't really prove that. I can't prove that this Mauler was the one flown by Ithaca Hawk in the Amar Championship match where they defeated Fafer to win the Kador House. Like, I can't prove that to anyone except myself. Because it's not a singleton. But if it was a singleton and it was provable, I could.
Okay.
That's a singleton. Essentially, that's what it is.
This is something that, I hope I would really love you to take a perhaps simpler version of next time you're next to the real EVE Online team rather than the new EVE team, and want you to present to them inscriptions and serialization. That would be absolutely fantastic. It's something that I've been asking for a while. Like, you know, an inscription. You spend some plex, you can write some text on in the info of an assembled ship, and lock it, and only repackaging the ship can get rid of it. And it says who did it, when they did it, and it has the serial number. That would be fantastic. It's something that a lot of people would pay for. A lot of people I've spoken to want to pay for is to inscribe their ships.
Yeah, sounds cool.
So it sounds like it's.
Imagine a game where you could do stuff like that. That'd be.
Have a lot of.
Well, I think it would be possible in EVE anyway, like in EVE Online right now, like without it having to be sort of like, you know, inherent, like sort of at a very base level, sort of, you know, unique as such.
Do you mean
there would also? Sorry.
Do you mean that so many problems that are spoken of to be solved by the blockchain can also just be done by a database? So
there is obviously that conversation that, you know, it is, you know, very pertinent to you know, to Frontier at this point in time. One, I think, you know, yeah, there is definitely a way for you know, you to be able to have a ship that has that
CCP
has like
already does it brilliantly with Abyssals as Singletons. They already do it. It was just a database.
Yeah, to a degree, for sure.
And they don't get accidentally mixed.
They don't get accidentally mixed, but
no,
being able to like
mixed or anything, yeah.
I would also say that, like, you know, being able to pay to sort of write a custom kind of blurb onto a ship's show info, it is kind of like, yeah,
minus any offensive language.
Minus any offensive language would sort of kind of fit that area, but you could also kind of just basically, you know, go through a set of, you know, like 20 nixes that are brand new and type in, you know, this nix was in, you know, the M2.
Yes,
you know,
but it also, but it wouldn't have the authentic inscriber's name, serial number, or the date and time that it was inscribed.
That's true. If that was an aspect of inscription,
that would be the whole deal behind verifying an inscription. Somebody could video themselves doing it, and there it is with the name, serial, and time. Immutable.
You say immutable.
Well, I mean, it's in the database in the game that the players don't have access to freely edit, like anything.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, okay. I guess in that sense, like when it's in the database, that only CCP can actually kind of touch as such. But like, you know, just recording a video saying that, like, you know, this video was recorded at this particular point in time, like you can fake that. Yes,
but in the video it would show the date, the time, and the serial on the ship.
And
when you've got the ship in your hand.
And you're saying that we can't fake that. Like the date and time, sure, but the actual inscription, like,
yeah, but if the inscription came with a date, time, and serial number, then you'd know that inscription and who made it. Then you'd know it was the one.
Not the one.
The game is recording the serial, the date and the time, and the person who did it. I can guarantee that an Abyssal module now that says that it was modified by Phantomite was modified by Phantomite.
No, I get that. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that kind of sense, yeah, it is sort of it is to some degree possible, and it is sort of not the only option or the only way of being able to kind of do, like, the only option. It's not the only way of being able to sort of make something unique in that kind of sense. Just to be, you know, to use like a to put it on the blockchain, right? So that I totally get where you're coming from there, for sure.
Looking at
it is
the
one
graph,
aspect.
we do have 12 minutes left.
Fuck my life.
Do
I
you
know,
want to
it's
say
just
goodbye
whiz by.
to CCP Overload and get into Zazac for the last 12 minutes?
We could definitely go into Zazac, yeah, for sure. If that's cool with you, Overload.
Yeah. I mean, you let me climb up on my soapbox and talk for quite a long time. I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. Thank you to everyone in chat as well. Got some of the questions were pretty good. I hope I've been able to give you guys some insight. We're going to keep giving insight as much as we can. Like I say, we really want to make sure that we're as open as possible with a lot of this stuff. You can register and participate in the playtest, which is on the 27th of this month, starting for I think 10 or 11 days. I can't remember off the top of my head. I would love to see you there. It doesn't cost you anything, and your feedback is valuable. It is listened to, and please do get in touch if you have concerns, questions, whatever. Like, it's always nice to hear from fellow Eve nerds.
Yeah, there's obviously, as you can imagine, a hell of a lot of stuff that we didn't get to, and there's some pertinent stuff that we didn't kind of really get the
We can
chance
talk about
to
that some more
ask.
in the future for sure. But
That would be fantastic. If you're cool with that, Overload, that'd be fantastic.
yeah, I just I'll leave with one final thing. I hope that you guys will give Frontier a shot. I hope that we will build something that you will enjoy. I hope that you guys will have a great time. Like, at the end of the day, I just want to make a really cool space game and to have it join the ecosystem of CCP and do you all proud. That's my goal. So.
Yeah, I know that we didn't get into the topic of RMT or the topic of being able to take in-game currency that you make in Frontier and sort of pull it out into the game, into real world kind of, or at least into cryptocurrency. That is one of the sort of topics that I was hoping we were potentially going to get to, but we didn't quite get to. But we will talk about that aspect, and hopefully we'll have Overload on again to sort of go over some aspects of that as well. But yeah, thank you very much, Overload.
Thank you. Enjoy your last 10 minutes talking about Zazac. See you later.
Cheers.
All right, thanks.
So yes, Zazac had some changes made. Changes that you like, by any chance, Phantom?
I think you guys like the changes as well. I don't think I have a differing opinion to you guys on this.
I like them. I like some of the changes. I don't like some of the other changes. Right? Like,
what do you not like?
The changes to bubble mechanics, or the inability for bubbles to be in places, like they can go take a running leap.
Well, I suppose that kind of, if you use the lack of bubbling in Zazac now, I suppose that kind of gives us the implication as to what CCP wants the system to be now. I mean, obviously, if CCP wanted people to live there and then just go to the insurgencies, then they wouldn't have turned it into a super highway in the first place.
Yeah.
But if they want people to go there and live there, then I could understand maybe the reasoning in their head to getting rid of the bubbles in there. I do think that there was a hint of that intent when they first released it, by the fact that you couldn't go anywhere except the gates and the station. I mean, you could exist slightly away from the gates and station for a short time, as particularly Fraternity have found out on at least 2 occasions now, with an entire fleet of ships. But it very much feels to me like we have tens and tens of thousands of people who successfully live in nullsec, and we have thousands of people who successfully live in nullsec without being part of a block, who all manage to do all of their logistics with the existence of bubbles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're not just like the owners of 5 frigates and a cruiser. Even people who aren't part of large groups are the owners of capital ships and battleships and scores of other ships and billions of ISK worth of stock of modules and fuel and all sorts of things, and they manage perfectly fine with the existence of bubbles. I would argue that perhaps the majority of the game currently knows, if they're not currently living with bubbles, knows how to live with bubbles. So it is a little confusing that Zazac seemingly isn't allowed bubbles.
Yeah,
I personally think that they could have gone a different route. Instead of completely disabling bubbles or disallowing them.
I thought you were going to say literally around the bubbles, as in the different route.
Except you don't really you now, of course, except for unless you wait 6 hours, you don't have alternate route options as much with Zazac. You can't go in
Kind of true, yeah.
and then go. You can't go in and say, don't like the way that this is camped. I'll go out and I'll go through low sec or high sec to get to another entrance, and I'll go in through there. No. Actually, no. Hold on. You can do that. You can go in via any gate. It's about going out via the one you came in by.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As I understand it, the problem was that people were putting bubbles at the edges of the safe zone and then catching people outside of it.
Yes.
Yeah, using pool bubble mechanics, right?
Yeah. And I think CCP could have solved that by simply extending the safe zone not as far for deployables, right? For bubbles, for example, for anything really except ships.
I'm fine for like deployable bubbles to basically not be a thing. Like small bubbles that like have a very finite amount.
I mean both launched and anchored bubbles.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I
So
think
basically, like make it a bit tighter for those things so that they get the continuous damage. So if you put them down, they are dead within seconds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, something the elephant in the room with any kind of suggestion like that is that even though we've seen incredible videos of entire fleets being killed by the environment in Zazac because of bubbles, it hasn't stopped since it was launched. People using Zazac for solo to move to places and in large fleets and everything in between. It hasn't stopped them at all. It hasn't made it, and it's not just, oh yeah, well, the big guys can use a scout and get through. They could scout better through a dangerous system that they have no real control over. They can't light a Sino or anything like that. They've got tools available to them to not get caught like this.
They have tools available, even if it's not possible to use like bookmarks in Zazac. Like you can still have a bubble immune scout to basically get to the gate and then provide a warp in spot, to warp back down into, to prevent a fleet from actually going in. But like you still need. You still need to sort of have the onus on the the fleet and of the group to actually have to like do that, right?
You've got 4 minutes, and you've got an interesting comment from Swift in the chat there that probably reveals a fair bit.
My bad.
Swift's last comment.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I'm glad that was part of the intention.
I mean, hearing that it's part of the intention is very encouraging to hear about for how CCP thinks about these things, but slightly discouraging that we're now in a situation where that's the good intent, and yet we don't have bubbles in there.
Well, I imagine at this point in time, it's a case of like, it's the nerf buff kind of situation where you're sort of slowly getting, the situation to where you kind of really want it to be, right? So I imagine at some point CCP is probably, and I hope that they will, reintroduce bubbles into Zazac once they're able to kind of at least figure out how to, get the situation more to where they actually want it to be. And as per Swift's comment, like clearly the intention was that, being able to pull people with bubbles into the death zone is a thing that they want to have happen, and I hope that it will eventually come back to Zazac. Right?
I mean, I hope so, but it's a bit discouraging to have no bubbles in there with a we'll iterate later kind of concept for it, because it was terribly damaging to a lot of places to have Zazac be this way for an entire year, so that from our point of view, super large groups could be just a few jumps away from otherwise independent low sec groups.
Yeah,
and
and
that was
and
left
the,
for entire. It'd be nice not to leave something
now for another,
unintentionally bad for another year. It's like, well,
yeah,
why not? If that's the intent, then why not fix it now?
Well, to be
And-
fair,
with it,
other ways of fixing it are probably way more complicated than simply saying no bubbles allowed.
I'm sure, but we have people in chat here saying that people who live in Zazac and regularly use Zazac saying they adapted to bubbles just fine in Zazac.
yeah.
Sure, but I can't really fault CCP for trying to open Zazac up to more people, right? By not
given
having
there's
to
a
deal
news-
with the bubbles.
It is one of those sorts of things where, like, I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, CCP kind of looked at it and was like, "Well, look, we need to implement a bunch of changes, and these bunch of changes are going to be positive for a lot more people than they are negative to people, right?" Like,
And this is a huge positive overall.
it is like the super highway for large blocks to go forth and literally cross the entire map to go and fight their fight their sort of frenemies on the other side of the on the other side of the cluster, just because their frenemies decided to, like, actually rock up to a small group in their local area just to kind of like screw with them is a bit much.
I will miss one thing about Zazac. I live 2 jumps from Zazac, and I live on the route that that all 3, we would see Fraternity, we would see Imperium, and we would see the Initiative, all semi-regularly bring several hundred-man fleets through. Now, something that I am well known for and frequently mocked for is my irritation with people who aren't aligning as fast as I want them to. And I got to say, the large blocks coming through our system when there's 5 or 6 of us means that on numerous occasions we've been able to sit on the gate for an hour just killing stragglers who just think they can just catch up. There's no bubbles in low sec. I'll just travel easily. It's safe out there. And we now with the super highway through Zazac gone, we've cut Fraternity out of that. But I look forward to seeing some of you guys running late through my system again soon.
Well, I look forward to Initiative utilizing wormholes and drifter holes a lot more than how we used to, right? Which is good. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad for the changes, but I'm also glad. I'm also hopeful that there's going to be some additional changes. Hopefully within the next year, right? As you say, Phantom. But it's good to know that CCP's intention is to at some point, like, bring bubbles back to Zazac. But anyway, we are 2 minutes over time.
Oh no!
I guess we should probably do one last things around the group. So bottom to top. I mean,
Bottom to top.
Well, Mac, you're at the bottom, so.
Oh shit! Oh, I didn't realize some stupid ass reason.
Well, he didn't actually clarify which. Are we doing it by picture? Are we doing it by on air channel? I don't know.
Actually, can we go top to bottom so I can quickly
Sure.
ping somebody?
I just want to note that Dawn's blowing us all off because she's at like a little miniature choo-choo train. festival.
Yeah, and
I didn't even know they had a train festival. I mean, at least go to like Dawn. I mean, come on. At least go to like Renfest or something like that, Renaissance Festival or something.
I can do my one last thing as such if you guys still want
there
to
you go.
talk.
I'm done. I did my one last thing, and now Dawn's gonna like bitch me out now. But okay.
So there was an absence of Dirk. I was hoping that Dirk was going to be here today, but like unfortunately he did catch some degree of flu as such, so he was wiped out today. I know that any other time, other than being like severely flu ridden, he would have been here, especially with Ithaca on the show. I'd like to say thank you very much for CCP Overload being on the show and for Swift being in the chat. Thank you very much, mate. We will probably have additional shows where we talk about Frontier, not in any particular way to try and like the intention of like talking about Frontier is not to try and like make it sound better or try and pitch it to people in any way, shape, or form, but just to dispel shit and to basically talk about like to talk about it and to see if the intention of it is meritable and genuine, right? That's at least the direction that I'm coming at it for, right? So we're probably gonna have like more shows where we talk about it, and probably more shows where we have Ithaca, aka CCP Overload, on to talk about it as well, and to sort of dispel some myths, and to maybe hold his feet to the fire about certain aspects. I don't know, depends. The only other kind of thing is this week's meta show is going to be postponed until Wednesday, so there's going to be a Wednesday meta show, apparently, according to what I've been told. So
crazy.
Unfortunately, no meta show, but like I believe there is a fireside potentially. You should be there already if you're not.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Or no, you're next. Or I don't know. We're gonna talk about. I don't know. We bookended it.
I've only been here for half an hour. I'm probably going to watch some of it back. But thanks for having me at the very end.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mass anarchy. We don't know what order we're going in.
So,
when we started quote unquote planning for the show, everyone who knows us knows we don't plan. But we started talking that we should do a show on Eve Frontier, and I jokingly suggested, "Hey, I can ask CCP if they want to come on the show."
Yeah.
Within a minute, I had an answer from CCP Overload that yeah, of course he wants to be on the show, and he's going to be here. So that's the fastest I've ever gotten a response from CCP on anything. So props for that.
Yeah, I was surprised as to how fast you'd kind of like mentioned that to me. I was like, Jesus Christ. It was impressive. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah, I think we're all done here. But all
right.
Go have a great evening. I think Dave is going to be raiding into his channel. I don't know what are you playing, Dave? I don't know what you're playing, but like hopefully it's a fun watch. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for chilling with us, and hopefully there's some aspects of what CCP are doing that's a bit sort of dispelled, and more about that in future episodes.
Alrighty. Thanks for everything. We'll see you everybody next week. Later.
Bye.
See ya.
We're out.